Right now in backyards all across America, millions of tomato plants are quietly making a decision, and most gardeners have no clue it's even happening. You see, the tomato is the single most popular plant in the American home garden. More of us grow tomatoes than any other vegetable, hands down. And there's a good reason for that. There is simply nothing like the taste of a sun-warmed tomato you picked yourself, still smelling like the vine. But here's what almost nobody tells you. The few weeks right before July are the most important stretch of the entire growing season. This is the exact moment your plants stop being little leafy youngsters and start the real job, setting flowers and turning them into fruit. What you do or fail to do in these next several days will quietly determine whether you're drowning in tomatoes come August or staring at a sad leggy plant with 3 sunburned fruits on it. The good news? You don't need fancy gadgets or expensive products, you just need to know the right moves. So before the brutal heat of midsummer rolls in, grab your gloves and let's get your tomatoes ready to explode with fruit. Number 1. Prune the suckers. If you do only one thing this week, make it this. Take a close look at your tomato plant and you will notice little shoots growing right in the armpit, that V-shaped joint where a side branch meets the main stem. Those are called suckers, and left alone, every single one of them will grow into a full-size stem with its own leaves, branches, and demands. Here is the problem. Your plant only has so much energy to go around. Every sucker you let run wild is energy being poured into making more leaves instead of more tomatoes. On top of that, all that extra growth crowds the plant, traps humid air inside the canopy, and creates the damp, stagnant conditions that fungal diseases absolutely love. By pinching off those suckers while they are still small and tender, small enough to snap between your thumb and forefinger, you redirect that energy straight into fruit production and flavor. You also open the plant up so air and sunlight can move through it freely. One important note: this applies mainly to indeterminate varieties, the tall, vining types that keep growing and producing all season. If you're growing a determinate or bush variety, go easy. Those plants set most of their fruit in one concentrated window, so heavy pruning can actually cost you tomatoes. When in doubt, just remove a few of the lowest suckers and leave the rest alone. Number 2. Strip the bottom leaves. While you've got your pruning fingers out, look down at the bottom of the plant. See those lower leaves, the ones drooping down and brushing against the soil? Those need to go. It might feel wrong to strip leaves off a healthy plant, but this is one of the smartest defensive moves a tomato grower can make. Most of the nasty fungal diseases that plague tomatoes, things like early blight and septoria leaf spot, actually live in the soil. When you water or when summer rain hits the ground, it splashes those spores up onto the lowest leaves, and from there the infection climbs its way up the plant. By removing the bottom 6 to 12 inches of foliage, you take away the launching pad. The spores have nowhere to land. You'll often see this on plants in late summer, yellowing spotted leaves creeping up from the bottom. Strip those lower leaves now before the disease ever gets a foothold, and you give your plant a massive head start. As a bonus, clearing out the bottom improves air flow around the base of the plant and helps the soil dry out faster after watering, which fungi hate. Just don't get carried away and defoliate the whole plant. Those upper leaves are the solar panels powering your fruit. Lower leaves only. Number 3. Mulch the soil. This is the trick that does about 5 jobs at once, and it takes 10 minutes. Lay down a layer of mulch, straw, shredded leaves, dried grass clippings, or untreated wood chips about 2 to 3 inches deep around the base of each plant. Keep it pulled back an inch or so from the actual stem so it does not trap moisture against it. Why does this matter so much right before July? Because as the temperatures climb, your soil starts swinging wildly, baking hot during the day, cooler at night, and drying out fast. Tomatoes hate inconsistency. A good blanket of mulch evens all of that out, keeping the root zone cool and the moisture level steady. That steady moisture is the secret to preventing two of the most heartbreaking tomato problems out there: blossom end rot, that ugly black sunken patch on the bottom of the fruit, and cracking where the skin splits open after a sudden drink of water. Both are caused largely by erratic feast or famine watering, and mulch is your buffer against it. Mulch also chokes out weeds that would otherwise steal water and nutrients, and it acts as a physical barrier that stops those soil-borne disease spores from splashing up, working hand in hand with that leaf stripping you just did. One simple layer and you have tackled water, temperature, weeds, and disease all at once. Number 4. Water deep and at the base. Speaking of water, how you water your tomatoes matters just as much as how much. And the heat of late June is exactly when bad habits start doing real damage. The golden rule is deep and infrequent, not light and frequent. A quick daily sprinkle only wets the top inch of soil, which trains roots to stay shallow and weak. Instead, water slowly and thoroughly 2 or 3 times a week so the moisture soaks down deep. This drives the roots downward, building a strong, drought-resistant plant that can handle the scorching weeks ahead. Just as important, water the soil, not the plant. Splashing the leaves leaves them damp, and wet foliage is an open invitation for the very fungal diseases we have been working to prevent. Aim your hose or watering can right at the base, or better yet, use a soaker hose or drip line. If you do water by hand, do it in the morning so any stray splashes have all day to dry off. Consistency is everything here. Those tomatoes you're trying to protect from blossom end rot and cracking depend on a steady, even supply of moisture to move calcium through the plant and to keep the fruit from swelling too fast. Pair deep, consistent watering with your fresh layer of mulch, and you've built a system that practically waters itself. Number 5. Switch up the feeding. Here's a mistake that fools even experienced gardeners. They feed their tomatoes the same fertilizer all season long, usually something heavy in nitrogen, and then can't figure out why they've got a gorgeous jungle-sized plant with hardly any tomatoes on it. The issue is nitrogen. Early in the season when the plant is young, nitrogen is great because it fuels lush, leafy growth. But once your plant starts flowering and setting fruit, which is happening right about now, too much nitrogen tells the plant to keep making leaves instead of tomatoes. You end up with all show and no harvest. So this is the week to switch gears, ease off the high nitrogen feed, and move to a fertilizer that's lower in nitrogen and richer in phosphorus and potassium, the nutrients that drive flowering and fruit development. Many garden centers sell blends labeled specifically for tomatoes or labeled for bloom and fruit that do exactly this. Side dress your plants by scratching a little fertilizer into the soil a few inches out from the stem, then water it in. Feed every few weeks rather than dumping it all at once. Give your tomatoes the right fuel at the right time, and you'll redirect all that energy out of the leaves and straight into the fruit where you want it. Number 6. Get your supports up now. If your tomatoes aren't properly staked, caged, or tied up yet, this is genuinely your last comfortable chance. Right now the stems are still young and flexible and the plant is light. In a few weeks, once it's loaded with heavy fruit and sprawling in every direction, trying to wrangle it onto a support is a nightmare, and you'll snap branches and bruise tomatoes doing it. Getting your plants up off the ground is one of the biggest favors you can do them. Tomatoes that sprawl on the soil are sitting ducks for rot, slugs, and disease, and the fruit touching the dirt almost always goes bad. Lift everything up into the air and you keep the fruit clean, dramatically improve air flow through the plant, and make harvesting a whole lot easier on your back. You've got options depending on your setup. Tall, sturdy cages work well for bushier determinate types. For the big, indeterminate vines, a strong stake with soft ties or the Florida weave method where you run twine between stakes down a row will keep them upright and organized all season. Whatever you use, tie loosely with something soft like garden twine or strips of old t-shirt, never anything thin and wiry that can cut into the swelling stem. Set this up now and you'll be calmly tucking in new growth all summer instead of fighting a losing battle with a collapsed tomato bush. Number 7. Help them pollinate before the heat hits. Here's a trick almost no beginner knows, and it can be the difference between a flower turning into a tomato or simply dropping off the plant. Tomatoes are self-pollinating. Each flower has everything it needs to fertilize itself. But there is a catch that pollen has to be physically shaken loose inside the flower for it to work. Out in the open, wind and visiting bees do that job. But if your plants are crowded in a sheltered spot, on a still day, or in a screened-in area, those flowers may never get the jostle they need. The fix takes seconds. Around midday, when the air is warm and the pollen is at its most active, gently flick or tap the flower clusters with your finger or give the main stem a light shake. For an even better result, hold the vibrating back of an electric toothbrush against the stem just behind a flower cluster for a couple of seconds. That little buzz mimics a bee perfectly and shakes the pollen right where it needs to go. Why do this now, before July? Because once temperatures consistently climb above the low 90s, tomato pollen starts to become less viable, and the plant will simply drop its blossoms rather than set fruit. By giving your flowers a pollination boost in these cooler weeks beforehand, you lock in fruit set early, so you have tomatoes already growing strong before the worst of the summer heat arrives. And if a brutal heat wave does roll through, draping a light shade cloth over your plants during the hottest afternoon hours can keep those blossoms from dropping. There you have it, 7 simple moves, no fancy equipment required, that take your tomatoes from just surviving to absolutely thriving. And the best part is that the window to do them is right now, this week, before the calendar flips to July. Knock these out and your future self standing in the garden in August with a basket overflowing with tomatoes is going to thank you. So go try one of these on your own plants this week. Then come back and tell us in the comments which trick made the biggest difference. We read every single one. And if this gave you even one idea you did not have before, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss a tip. Now get out there and grow some tomatoes.